pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, roll call.
Trustee Blower.
Yes.
Trustee McGurran.
Yes.
Trustee Young.
Yes, ma'am. Public participation. Individuals who wish to address the board must speak from a podium and state their name and address for the record. Points should be made clearly and consistently within the 5-minute limit. One person's time may not be yielded to another. Comments should be directed to the board with courtesy and respect. Any responses from the board will be delivered in like kind. So the first one will be Mr. Dan York, and he wants to talk about the auto delivery, loading and unloading, and the new firehouse. I just saw the first loading and unloading of what you were talking about. I didn't see the auto delivery. Go ahead.
My name's Dan York, 4346 Oregon Street. When it comes to the auto delivery, I got no problem with people running a business. But with the property that they have, they could do their unloading and loading on their property and not in the middle of Venice Street. I know that sometimes it's 15 or 20 minutes, sometimes it's all day. I'm kind of curious, is that something that was grandfathered in back in 1927 or something, or what? Is that something that's, because there are no parking signs right there. If there's no parking, seems to me there shouldn't be any unloading and loading, because that's parking. The other thing, I heard talk in recent months about new firehouse. Well, we got a firehouse down there on Cincinnati, Brookville. And I've asked about that a couple of times. And every time I said anything about it, it's like, well, it's in a floodplain. And so I got kind of curious and I posted a question. When was the last time floodwaters got close to that building? There is a watermark in the fuse box from what I'm told, but that was 1959. And it's my understanding that there hasn't been floodwater near there in 66 years. Now, if I'm wrong, show me. But to talk about building a complete new building, when you've got a perfectly good one, just add on to it, do the improvements. It'd be a whole hell of a lot cheaper to do that than to do away with that building or shove it off to the side and not utilize what you already have. It's like kind of like, to me, people on a fixed income wanting to buy a new car when they've got one that's got 80, 90,000 miles on it, it's still good for another 20 years. Doesn't make any sense. Utilize, if you're gonna utilize township money, utilize it for something that's gonna do what we want and need, not just what somebody wants. That firehouse down there is just as good as any other place. It needs a barracks. It needs a bunch of improvements. And I got no problem with any of that. My problem is something brand new just because it's brand new. This isn't a Harley dealership. You know, just because you go and spend $50,000 for a new motorcycle doesn't mean you have a great motorcycle. When there's 25, 30-year-old motorcycles out there that are just as good and will do just what you want them to do. That building is the same. Thank you.
Stay there, stay there. All right, addressing your auto delivery, we'll talk to them about that. Express why, they shouldn't be out there. They do have room to pull a truck in and unload it and unload it there. They do. Second thing, the new firehouse. So when UDF came down there and wanted to build, they had to build that wall because that's a floodplain. You cannot get a building permit to do anything down there right now because of the floodplain. That's what strikes that out.
and deal with that. Because if the floodwater hasn't been there in 66 years, that's not a floodplain.
Well, you tell that to the county zoning.
Tell me who.
That's where they stand,
Tell me
okay?
who.
Dan, you can call the Butler County Board of or the Building and Zoning Department. Jim Fox used to be the floodplain administrator. Since he left, it would be whoever. Yeah. They get the directives, I believe it's from FEMA. I don't believe that
Well,
They
we don't
get-
have FEMA anymore.
they get the order and it trickles down and they have to adhere to those guidelines.
And
Who is it again?
His name is Ushi,
Uche,
Uche. He's with
USHE.
Butler County Board of Building and Zoning. They are the administrator.
I'll give you his
for
last
the
name when
county.
you're ready, April.
well, if that's the case, man, half of those homes back there in Birdland should be there.
You just have to,
ADIGWE.
you have to work within the parameters that they tell you. And I think.
The one with A is his last
UDF
name.
had
Uche
to
is his first name.
build up and they had to use land
Like.
from the same floodplain to do it. So there are requirements and there are
Building
workarounds.
and
So
zoning.
I understand what happened with UDF, okay? Which to me
He's with
is
Butler County zoning.
ridiculous too. Okay?
What would you say?
Because
Butler County zoning.
since 1959, when that was the last time floodwaters got near the building and into it, okay? Since 1959, we've had massive improvements on the river, controlling the water. We've had, how many floods since then? I know there was one in 66. The one in 97 got into my mom and dad's place down in Patriot, Indiana. Of course, they were right there on the river, basically back up from the river. Got 4 feet into their house, which would have made it about 7 or 8 feet deep right there. Now, if my understanding that if water was that high in 97 and you didn't see any water down there by that firehouse, building there should not be a problem.
Well, they go with what they call a 100-year floodplain.
Right.
And when they put that kind of stuff out, there's nothing we can do about that. As far as the building itself,
There is something that you can do. You can do exactly what I intend to do, and that's start contacting our, George Lang, any other elected representative we have here in the state, and whatever federal representatives we have, and start raising a little cane. Because to build a brand new place is going to cost us, 10 times what refurbishing that place would be? I'm not talking about spending a whole bunch of money for some stinking lawyer to go to court over this. I'm talking about getting in there, talking to these people and trying to deal with them directly. It's just, I guess maybe I have become, when I was younger, I went to work and made a paycheck so that I could go have a good time. Friends of mine that have been friends for the last 30, 40, 50 years said, Brooke, you've become a real tight ass. Well, that's because I live on a limited income. I see the people around me that are in the same boat. I see young people that can't afford to do this and do that. We could be helping people. I'm not talking about handing them money or anything like that, but we could still be helping people with the money that we save by utilizing what we have instead of, I just paid $60,000 for this new Harley. It's cool, ain't it? No. Utilize what you have. Don't go sticking your hands in people's pockets for stuff that you don't need to. Because sooner or later, no matter where you get the money, it comes out of people's pockets. And I've had my say. Thanks.
thank you, sir. I appreciate it. All right, Patrick West.
Let me just kick one thing in there, Dan, but can you bear with me just a second here, Pat? When we were looking at selling that property down at the end of Morgan Lane, I talked to somebody, and I don't remember who it was, with government. It may have been higher than the county. I can't remember who it was, but I'll find out. And they told me how hard it is to change that. It's pretty hard. I'll ask, and I know I can at least report to you, and we can go from there.
Why not just do it anyway?
And we can't.
Why?
You mean build there or?
Yeah, why not just do the refurbishing? Because you're not really building, you're adding to an existing building and property. You're not building a new building.
I think as long as we don't change the footprint of the building, we're okay.
Go up.
Yeah. And I did say that to this APP architecture, do we build out or up? And he said it was more expensive to build up, which is maybe doable.
You know, if you ride around Ross Township, you know how many buildings, outbuildings, barns, garages and stuff have been built and put in place in Ross Township and never seen a permit.
But a lot.
I rest my case, man. I rest my case. This is something that you guys should be looking at. You're looking at saving money, not spending a bunch of money that you don't need and don't have.
Are we going to talk about this later, Dave?
Yes.
Okay, we've got more to talk about that tonight, and I'll have something to say about that. We'll continue the conversation on. Okay.
Good, Patrick.
Yes, thank you. So my apologies. I think the first trustee man I made this year. So you may have already talked about this, but a few years ago, there was work done on curb replacements in Ross Trails. So I just wonder, I know we started, Paul, but I don't know if there was any more money allocated to do any more curb replacement. So that was my question. Kind of simple, kind of yes or no, maybe, or.
We don't have money allocated for it. We were paving Rabina, so we had to do some curb work ahead of that.
Yeah.
And I mean, we just budgeted it for that year. The price of that work has gone up tremendously like everything else. So it'll be a case by case basis and try to get enough in one specific area to get a better price. But do you have a certain curb?
Yeah. I mean, in our cul-de-sac, Foxton, there's several of them that's pretty bad. Mine is really bad for whatever reason. I don't know. I think this is the quality of the concrete that was used originally, in my opinion. But yeah, there's several of them that are bad and deteriorate. So I'm concerned about the safety of people traversing and walking up and down those curbs onto the sidewalk or whatever.
Right.
We have unfortunately people that walk on the street sometimes when they do the sidewalks.
Sure.
Yeah. But yeah, if there's any money that can be allocated, that would be great and appreciated. So.
We can certainly talk about it in the next year's budget for that. We have to budget for something like that ahead of time. So,
Okay, I appreciate the consideration.
no problem.
You bet.
Thank you.
Okay, procedural action. Move to the adoption of motion number 25-035 to dispense in the reading of the minutes from March 6th meeting, 2025, regular meeting, and the March 20th, 2025 work session. I need a second.
Second?
Any discussion? Roll call.
Trustee McGurran,
Yes?
trustee Blower,
Yes.
trustee Young.
Yes, ma'am. Move to the adoption of motion number 25-036 to approve the minutes for March 6th, 2020 regular meeting. I need a second.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Trustee McGurran,
Yes?
trustee Blower,
Yes.
trustee Young.
Yes, ma'am. Move to the adoption of motion number 25-037 to approve the minutes of the March 26th, 2025 work session. I need a second.
Second?
Roll call. Discussion? Roll call.
Trustee McGurran,
Yes?
trustee Blower.
Yes.
Trustee Young.
Yes, ma'am. Reports, financial officer.
All righty. Good evening, everybody. For your consideration this evening, I have the certifications of checks written and the certifications of purchase orders issued since the last meeting. There's nothing too terribly exciting on there for you. In front of you, in your stack of reports, the one with the blue banner, of course, is the receipt report for the month of March. I don't think there was anything of interest. I will note that since we started receiving money from the U.S. government for veterans, for the EMS transport, we're getting them right and left, so, and they're never small. And that's been, excuse me, that's been a welcomed sight in our receipts. I also have the management reports for you for the month of March. There's a fund summary and there is a revenue summary. Please keep in mind, we're 25% through the year. The permanent appropriations were approved by the Budget Commission. So all the totals that you're seeing for the end of March, this is now our regular permanent budget that's in place now. There's no more, the carryovers have all been moved over. There's also an appropriation summary as of March 31st. These are the expenditures. And again, 25% through the year. I did take a quick peek as far as salaries and those types of things are concerned. We're running right about where we should. As far as revenues, we received advances on the first half settlement. So general fund, road fund, I'm sorry, misspoke. General fund, police and fire, we've received 75% of those dollars. So you'll see on the revenue reports that those buckets are populated, whereas they are not yet on the road department. We have not received the final settlement. We should be getting it any day. Also for you to review and to sign would be the appropriations supplemental report as of March 31st. That's just anything I've moved within buckets when I'm moving money around it. And I have repaid some things, borrowing some things until our permanent appropriations were in. So you should see more of those coming as we go in the next month or so. There's also for your review and consideration, and I need a signature on the first financial credit card attestation for the month of February. I need President Young's signature on that, but that is also for you to review. Then we have the bank reconciliation for March of 2025. And again, this is just the new hybrid account, which leads me to my next item for you to review and to look at. Back in January, the board gave me permission to consolidate the money market with the checking. The money market was interest bearing, the checking was not. And after working with First Financial, we moved to a hybrid checking account, which now allows us to have interest on the full amount. And so what I've done for you, there's another report that's also got a blue banner. It's a little deceptive looking. It says interest receipts. It's going to show you our interest collections in 24 month by month. For example, in 2024, our interest on that money market was $12,763.07 with a monthly average of $1,063. Then I did the highest and lowest for you so you can see what we got in. Then in January, I had moved money out of the money market to cover expenses and checking. So our January interest was not nearly as robust as it had been in the previous January. February was the month we changed everything over, so we didn't get interest. But then for March, our interest in March was $2,200. Which far exceeds anything we've ever received before. So I'm just going to do a month-to-month comparison just so that I know that we made the right change in going with this hybrid account. The other interesting thing is with our traditional checking account, we paid $60 a month in fees for our ACH ability, our mobile banking, and our positive pay. Well, under this new hybrid account, there's a grand calculation when they go to do the interest. And basically, if our interest generates enough money, we don't pay any fees. And that's the second page of this report. Basically, instead of paying $60 in fees for the month of March, we paid nothing. So that's going to save us about $720 annually in not paying fees. Now, that is all provided that we carry a certain balance in that hybrid checking account. So anyway, I just wanted to let you know where we stand with that, but it looks like we're on the positive side of all those things. But I am keeping an eye on it because if I'm not happy, then we will resort back to the traditional money market checking. That's all I have for you. I just wanted to let you know that I will not be able to attend the meeting, the actual meeting, the first week of May. After a long hiatus of doing community theater, I am doing a show and we open that week. So I will not be available any night that week because I will be busy performing. Haven't done this in about 10 years. So thoughts and prayers would be greatly appreciated.
Break a leg?
Yeah, that's appropriate. Break a leg is appropriate. Miami Hamilton. The campus Miami Hamilton.
Play.
It's Fiddler on the Roof. A shameless plug. Fiddler on the Roof. So I haven't done a musical in 10 years.
Break it.
Yeah. Yarmulkes are welcome. Yeah.
You drove. You are Harley.
Hey, he's diverse. So that's all.
It was
for me.
bad.
If anybody has any questions about any of the financials, I'm happy.
Are we balanced throughout? You said we're
We're
more than balanced.
We're more than balanced. We're doing rather well. Everybody is holding the line. So
The TIF money that's in there, has that just been building over the years?
yes. Now, the only thing we did expend some of the TIF money last year on the signs for the roadway.
Yeah.
But that's about it. And we do have to make the schools whole on one of the two TIF.
And the land,
Oh, and the mulch, the landscaping, thank you.
$7,000.
So, but that's all allowable under that statute, so landscaping and beautification.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Purpose to approve the pay of the bills. Motion to adopt motion 25-038 to pay the bills as presented through the fiscal officer certification and purchase orders. I need a second.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Trustee McGurran,
Yes?
trustee Blower,
Yes.
trustee Young.
Yes, ma'am. Administration.
good evening. First on my agenda is I am beginning to gather content for a spring newsletter. On my list already, I have the information for the road department just to inform residents that we have 47.95 miles of roadway. There's no levy for the road department. The average experience of the 3 employees is 14 years, and that they do a lot with a little. For the police department, in the past, it was suggested to put in that the police department will pay cash for clues to informants. I have for the fire department a full page just to inform residents of details concerning the levy, and also to notify residents that they have the ability to sign up for website notifications. So if everyone could be contemplating if there's any other information that they would like included in a spring newsletter, and let me know. Next, 2 items not on the agenda. Fortunately, the storm has fixed the marquee.
Well,
For whatever reason.
Thank you, Jesus.
Same thing happened last year. We had a windstorm and the marquee resumed working.
It'll just fall down.
Next, I have had a request from the garden club that the remaining 2 signs that are not laminated be put on the back side of the 2 signs that are already installed at the intersection. They, who knows how long they'll last since they're not laminated.
We talked about that a while back.
Yes, I did inform the garden club that was discussed.
I think it was 3 to 5 years that it would last without lamination, and we chose to keep them as they were, so that we had a spare when those inevitably go bad. So
I did indicate to the garden club that it was previously discussed, but I did indicate I would submit their request on their behalf.
For the board's consideration this evening, there are 3 resolutions. As part of House Bill 315, the police department will have the ability to charge for processing body camera footage for public records requests. So the township's public records request and retention policy has been revised to include that option. The police chief can discuss a little further how he intends to deal with those requests. But it's also just some general cleanup, a little, the previous policy referenced emails. So this new policy has been revised to include any electronic messaging. The second resolution is to amend the personnel policy in regards to this new public records request and retention policy. And it is my intent to revise the personnel policy that it pretty much refers to the township approved policy. I'm trying to get in the mindset of say it once in one place and then always refer back to that one place. And the third resolution is for debris, which is several tires that have been in front of a property on Thrush Avenue for an extended period of time. So those are the 3 resolutions for your consideration. And also in your packet is a nuisances update.
Was that up to $750 I saw on public records request for the cameras?
Yes.
Okay. Thing we should talk about on if people actually come and want that, so we kind of have that established.
Yeah, just briefly on this, we obviously provide the body camera footage to the courts, to the prosecutor's office, to victims of crime at no cost. This is really addressing a huge concern that is throughout the entire state. When they initially wrote the public records law, that the YouTubers that want to get content to make money on their websites will just simply give us a blanket request week after week for certain police reports, like a disorderly or an OVI or a pursuit, where all they want is to have us give them the content, which is just daunting, the amount of redactions that we have to do to protect people's rights. It's just allowing us to not have a full-time person being paid to give it out to people that really have no interest in it other than to exploit other people or just waste taxpayer money. I have no inclination to charge people that need this for legitimate legal purposes, victims' purposes. We will protect those, but we have, with the changes in Marcy's law, we have a lot of redactions that have to do, and they don't turn off their camera. So,
Have you gotten many since?
we're starting to get them now because now they know. And obviously, if there are things that are of public interest, I will release that body camera footage for transparency so people can grab it off of social media sites that we would do, or the news media can have it. I'm all about showing, it's why we got body cameras, so that we are transparent with our community. Again, this is just, I had this a lot at my previous employer. It was almost nonstop. You will just get a blanket over and over and over.
Is that about all those YouTube video morons that create their own stuff to make themselves relevant and important?
Yes, for financial gain.
Not enough people are getting punched in the face. That's all there is to
I
it.
won't comment on that, but yes. So this is new. We want to have a policy in place. I know Lori and I were talking about the Township Association is also looking at a draft policy. The Attorney General's office is also looking at a draft policy. We use what another township did just in case if we start getting inundated because we cannot refuse public records requests. So, but I'm not going to pay someone full-time and not charge people accordingly if it's just to waste taxpayer money.
Any idea of how many, it says $75 an hour with an amount not to exceed $750. Any idea what the average request takes either here or in your former position?
Generally, if I have a news media outlet or somebody that's asking for something, we will comply, but I will ask them, what is it you're looking for? If you're looking just because the news media wants to have a 1-minute section of video that they're going to play on the news, that's all they want. If someone is just asking us for, 5 hours of body camera footage and I don't have a valid exemption to deny it to them, then someone has to sit and go through redactions, which is just unbelievable, time consuming.
So is your plan to follow what OTA or the state does and kind of?
Yeah, we'll modify ours if we need to.
Okay.
I don't think we'll be the first person. I'm just trying to get in front of it in case if they start.
Okay.
They're getting really good at the body camera stuff, so Kayla and Lieutenant Rogers do an outstanding job.
All right, purpose, to update Ross Township Public Records request and retention policy. I move for the adoption of Resolution 2025-021, amending the Ross Township Public Records request retention policy. And I need a second.
Second.
Any discussion?
Where is that policy at? Is it here, sitting here in front of us somewhere?
It's attached to the resolution. It's the exhibit.
You'll be coming up.
Can I see that?
Absolutely. Is this a better copy? Wait, on the next?
That's the personnel.
Okay,
Yes.
personnel. There's also, we have put a poster on the door of all the buildings of our records policy, and this would be modifying that as well.
You guys want to see that?
You're going to see it as it is, if it comes through.
But
Right.
we haven't voted yet.
We haven't voted yet. Don't sign it yet.
Okay. We'll do that, okay? I got a
I
second.
didn't know if you want to see it. If you
On
want, if you guys want.
discussion. We have it further down here.
Okay.
All right, I need a roll call.
Trustee McGurran?
Yes.
Trustee Blower?
Yes.
Trustee Young?
Yes, ma'am. Purpose, to amend the personnel policies to reflect the current Ross Township Public Records request and retention policy. Move for the adoption of Resolution 2025-022, amending the policy 500 records, maintenance and release of the Ross Township summary and personnel policies. I need a second.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Trustee McGurran?
Yes.
Trustee Blower?
Yes.
Trustee Young?
Yes, ma'am. Purpose, the Township Administration has provided evidence and nuisance violations that exist in the property of Thrush Avenue. This resolution declares the property to be a nuisance and orders an abatement. I need a resolution number 2025-023, declaring a nuisance for the accumulated debris on 2068 Thrush Avenue. I need a second.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Trustee McGurran?
Yes.
Trustee Blower?
Yes.
Trustee Young?
Yes, ma'am. Fire Department, Chief Johns.
Good evening. We got several things for you tonight. The first is our monthly run report. In March, we did 137 calls for service, 67 fire and 70 EMS. And again, you'll see on page 3 the 3-year comparison that we just keep getting busier and busier every year, and doesn't seem to be slowing down any. Fire inspections, Lieutenant Meyer completed 18 commercial business fire inspections this month or in March, and he has 12 scheduled for April to do. Some community outreach items. We handed out 2 Knox boxes to residents, and 12 smoke detectors were installed for residents in the community too. And the last thing I have, it was a good month for grants. We got several of them last month. We got $200 from Harbor Freight for hand tools for Station 1. We received $2,500 from Operation Open Arms that will buy battery operated case saws and reciprocating saws for both engines. And they will buy that equipment for us and present it to us in July. We received a grant from the Center for Emergency Preparedness for hazmat training. They'll be coming down in 2 weeks to do hazmat training with our company, and Morgan and Hanover were also invited to that. We also received $15,000 from the state fire marshal for their turnout gear and SCBA equipment grant. I believe this is the first time we've received a grant from the fire marshal for that equipment. So under the legislation, I have the $15,000 grant for you to accept. That's all I have.
Okay.
Who's writing those grants, Chief?
I am.
Thank you for doing all that.
Thank you, sir. Yes,
Appreciate that.
appreciate it.
Outstanding.
All right, purpose, accept the state fire marshal grant of $15,000 for personal protective equipment, SCUBA. Move to the adoption resolution 2025-0284, accepting the terms and conditions of the equipment grant from the state fire marshal, appointing the authorizing of the fire chief as project manager to execute and the said grant and terms and conditions establishing the grant fund numbered 2915, entitled 2025 Group Grant. State Fire Marshal budgeting receipts and making appropriations for expenses, and requesting of amended certificate established resources for the Butler County Auditor. I need a second.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Trustee McGurran.
Yes.
Trustee Blower.
Yes.
Trustee Young.
Yes, ma'am. Road. Mr. Paul.
Thank you. Just to give you a paving update with Black Road, they've got the markings down for the base repair. They were hoping to be out there tomorrow, but I would expect them to be delayed with all the rain.
Mhm.
And in that process of marking it, there's a culvert that right at the intersection of New London and Black. To the naked eye, it's a plastic pipe on the end and it looks good. The other end is buried all the way through the neighbor's yard. So there's no seeing through this pipe without a camera. The county brought out a new camera that they just paid $20-something thousand for, but they ran it through there, found that it was 20 feet of plastic, then it was connected to the old corrugated metal. So for 60 feet, it was all rotten. So we had to hurry up. We pulled it out, replaced it Monday and Tuesday, opened the road back up yesterday. So it's done. We didn't get in the paving way or anything, so that they can stay on schedule. It ended up being 82 feet of pipe we replaced, and everything was fine, went well. Like I said, they should be there sometime next week to start the patchwork.
Did the county charge us for the use of that camera?
No.
Would you express our thanks
I
to them?
have already. They actually do I think it's on a 3-year cycle. They go around to all the culverts and they do a report and they take pictures, but it was only pictures from the outside or what they could see with their eyes. So that didn't do us any good. So we didn't know that pipe was bad. So adding this camera to all their inspections will help a bunch. I had went out and followed up their inspection like I do before we pave any road. And, I got the same result they did because I couldn't see through it, but there was no indications that it was no sinkholes or anything, but that would have happened. We applied for the Moore grant to cover our safety shoes and high visibility clothing. That's $1,000 grant. I will let you know when it comes about. And then the ODOT sign grant, the township safety grant to replace your signs. We were awarded that grant in 2018, and they gave us $35,000 worth of signs to update everything to the latest and greatest reflectivity mandates. Well, they sent me something a couple weeks ago that they're opening that back up to anybody that received it before 2019. So I've applied for it again, understanding that any township that did not ever receive it will be in the front of the line. And that one doesn't conclude till August, so I won't know anything till then, but there's another $35,000 worth that hopefully we will get. So I'll let you know on both of those when they happen. And the other thing is the legislation we have here to adopt the sidewalk policy.
And curbs,
Please.
sidewalk and curbs, just sidewalks?
I don't know if we need a policy for curb. I know what he's talking about. We've looked at that numerous times, and if the budget follows the way I'm hoping, I've been planning to not have any paving on the 26th year unless we get a community block grant for it. So if that's the case, we should have some money to do those curbs, but I can't promise you now, so.
So when you replace a curb like that, do you tear it all the way out and replace it or just skim it?
They tear it all the way out. Yeah, they're junk. I mean, they're so pitted, and I was told to Band-Aid it, you just kicking it.
You just skim it, you just band it.
Right. And the last time we had it done, I was getting prices from guys around here, Ari Miller, people that have done curb around here for a long time. It was like $50 a foot. That was back when before we did Rabina. And I found a guy, excellent reputation. He's a couple counties up north. He'd never done curb though, but he bid it at about half that. And he did an excellent job, but he realized after he did it, he didn't make any money. So when I contacted him the following year or two, he's like, yeah, I can't do that anymore unless I'm up there with this guy, bidding. So that's one reason why we didn't do any more since then. And I don't know what today's prices are like. That was, but that is definitely something already on our radar we will be looking at.
You could have subsidized him a little bit with maybe a fifth of Jack.
Yeah.
Make him feel a little bit better.
Occasionally, Butler County will do a curb contract and get the townships together that need one to try to get a better price, but they haven't done that in several years, but I will ask them about that as well.
So if that's a cul-de-sac, that would be a circular one. That's a little tougher to lay down.
Yeah, that whole street needs addressed at the top of that cul-de-sac, so we may end up having to pave that street at the same time.
And I would take it, the biggest thing that causes a problem, they ever put any gravel underneath it, is poured on top of the mud.
That whole subdivision.
And then it gets hollowed out.
The developer messed that up.
Yeah.
They won't put nothing down. Yeah. Just like when you build your house, they don't do it for your driveway neither.
Yeah, the sidewalks are the same way.
Yep.
That's why we're talking about that.
While we're talking about road, I just want to let Paul know and Keith and Dave, I talked to Sean Sutton at ODOT about this out here in front of the bank, that puddle, how pools there consistently. If they haven't been out yet, have you seen them down there, Roy?
No.
They haven't been out there yet. They should be there within the next week or so. And I talked to Chief and Paul about that. Chief believes it to be a safety hazard, and then, just that water pooling there. They're going to survey it and look at the possibility of a dry well, dry ditch, or whatever their terminology is, to try to keep that water away from there.
I think there's one there already,
I don't know.
but
But
it's filled
he
with
is going to
mud.
send somebody out.
There's one at the bank, but there needs to be another one farther down.
Well, kind of in front of Mr. Tennis's house.
Yes.
So we'll see what they say. And he's going to report to the township when that's ready.
And the trouble, they go into a dry well, you go down 15 feet, you're in the aquifer in this area. It's not a dry well anymore.
Or they can just pipe right down into it and let it
Yeah.
go. But
All right, purpose for adoption of the policy to establish criteria and procedures for the construction, repair, maintenance, and replacement of sidewalks in Ross Township, but as authorized by Section 543-10 for the Ohio Revised Code. Move for the adoption of resolution 2025-025, adopting Ross Township sidewalk construction, repair, maintenance, and replacement policy. I need a second.
Second?
Any discussion? Roll call.
Trustee McGurran.
Yes.
Trustee Blower.
Yes.
Trustee Young.
Police Department. Chief.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, board. Couple quick updates for stats for the month of March. We had 261 calls for service. We had 464 self-initiated calls, 115 business checks, 189 vacation checks, 34 extra patrols, and 126 traffic stops, for a total of 725. Some of the highlights, or high-lows, whatever you want to call it. We had a vehicle pursuit from Colerain that came up US 27. I actually watched the body camera of this. Our officers were on a traffic stop on the other side of the highway, and this suspect fleeing from Colerain passed them at 120 miles an hour. So they did an outstanding job. It was Officer Steppel and our young new recruit that is still in the FTO program, Officer Vonderhaar. They immediately saw what was going on. They turned around because it was going into our township. They did not, there's a pursuit report because they're chasing somebody, but our people are following our policy and just going there to make sure something doesn't happen at the end, which it did, and this vehicle crashed. They had to assist Colerain in taking this person out at gunpoint, which is obviously a very dangerous situation, but everything that I reviewed was in policy. I was very pleased to see how just tactful they were in making sure that our citizens were safe because of something else coming into our township, and that obviously no one got killed by this. Mr. York, you could probably help me with the words I would say for this individual, but let's not do it on air right now.
Okay.
But we also had a domestic violence run where there was a gun involved with our officers. Officer Stilts, Officer Hale used some really good tactics. And again, this is the difference in body camera. It allows us to watch what they do, make sure they're being safe. There was a gun recovered on that. So the person that had that didn't have it readily with the officers, but he was arrested for domestic violence. If you didn't see the post, we had a young man that decided to basically tell someone at the high school he was going to Columbine the high school. So that was a very rapidly evolving situation. I was in contact with the schools the entire time. I actually, while they were looking for this young man, I was down at the school in the parking lot to make sure nothing was going to happen. And within maybe 35 minutes of being notified, we had already been to 2 different houses and had this young man in custody. So granted, I understand young people may have mental health issues and there are problems and we want to help families. But if you threaten to do harm to our school, I have zero tolerance for you for that. And you will be held accountable in the court system.
Did he do this once before?
Yeah, he was on some type of threat assessment before and was doing online school. And again, I'm really thankful for Dr. Rice and the school, how we communicate together, making sure we don't just panic people, but the situation was under control. Our people did a great job, reached out to the sheriff's office because the residence was out there in one of the other townships. They gave us assistance right away. It was a great collaboration. And again, we got a hold of this young man before he could do anything, if he was going to do anything. So really proud of our people over that. We had a burglary down in the Venice. A career criminal just got out of prison coming up from Colerain, decided to go in and steal a $5,000 stove that he put in the back of.
Yeah.
I don't know how he got down 120. I'm sure people were like, that looks really weird, which I thought it also looked weird when I saw it. But we were able to work with Colerain, and this is our first flock capture. So we went back on the flock, even though we don't have flock cameras, we now have access to them. We were able, because he thought he was smart enough to take his license plate off, but again, it will capture the vehicles. So we found this car hitting off a flock camera a month prior, found where he was, and issued a search warrant, got his car, and got him arrested within 48 hours, which is just outstanding police work by our officers. Foot pursuit. We got a call for some drug activity. Our officers responded down there. A subject that was acting very suspicious down by the UDF decided to take off on foot. We actually had a civilian that intervened on this and tackled the person who was running around some cars before our officers got to him. But they did a great job taking this person into custody. He was arrested on some warrants for obstructing official business and told not to come back to the township. We had another pursuit that came from Hamilton County of a stolen vehicle. Sergeant Little was working that day. He realized this was just for a traffic, maybe stolen vehicle property. He monitored the pursuit as it came into the township, but we did not get actively involved. We're just there to assist, clear intersections, to make sure that we are pursuing, which is a very dangerous thing for the public, and pursuing violent people who need to be apprehended. But again, we did a report on that. It was within policy, which for me as an administrator and township board, when we know our people are following policy, that reduces risk and liability for us, even though these are very chaotic situations. Our new detective, Detective Minnick, is hit the ground running. He says that I tricked him into coming here because I said nothing happens here. And he said, you weren't telling the truth. And I said, well, it's too late. You already work for me. But he has investigated several theft cases, a burglary, identity fraud. He's closed out all of these. He helped with the school thing. He's written some search warrants for phones and taken them to the regional crime task force to get them downloaded where he came from many years ago, and has taken several DNA swabs and evidence up to BCI, which allows me to keep officers here instead of them going out doing things that have to be done, but then they don't get to answer the calls to service. So he's doing an outstanding job and is actually clearing up cases that, you know, when we get busy, sometimes those go by the wayside, which is why he's now doing this. So I think that's about it for normal stuff. Training. So I attended new chief training up at Opata, which counted towards some CPT. So I'm new chief trained. Lieutenant Rogers went to the Police Executive Leadership Conference. It's an annual thing that is up there. Really good leadership. Counts for recertification for him for CLE. I just recertified for CLE through 2027. That's the Certified Law Enforcement Executive Program. So it's a lot of writing. It's basically a graduate level school. Every couple of years, you have to submit what you do and go to enough leadership seminars, trainings related to what we do in law enforcement to apply. And then the board for the Ohio Chiefs of Police will vote on whether you get recertified. Officer Steppel has attended sexual assault investigations training, an interview course, victims' rights, an SRO course for the school, and a proactive patrol course. As I mentioned earlier, PO Max Vonderhart is now in phase 2 of his FTO training. So I'm not a chief that is just going to throw people out on the street and say, have at it. I want to document that they have the tools necessary to do the job to the best of their ability and do it safely so that they don't get hurt, other people don't get hurt, and we do what's best out here. So he's coming along very well. He was never a police officer before, so it takes a little bit more time when they come out of the academy, but he was running around chasing people, so that's also good for him to be out and do that. Community engagement. Our school resource officer Steppel did a Girl Scout tour with Chief Johns in the fire department. We coordinated on that and had the Girl Scout troop come up, see what we do in law enforcement, see the fire department service. so that hopefully someday we can get these young ladies to go into public service and be strong leaders for us down the road. I attended the Regional Transportation Safety meeting with about 50 people from ODOT and around the area. I'm now on that planning commission to try and address some of these problems like you brought up and just get general information about traffic data, what we can do to make the road safer, and at least have the township represented. I also attended a wellness seminar with about 500 people throughout the state that's being run by the Ohio Department of Public Safety. And while I was up at the Chiefs course, one of the wellness things, which I'm really focusing on our wellness program for this year, is this is crazy. I didn't think it would go over as well, but they had these little acupuncture rings that you do for stress relief. And I brought them in here, and all of a sudden they all started disappearing for our officers and some of the staff here. I don't know if that's related to working for me, but there's a good probability that there's some relation.
Does that explain why Michaela has one on?
Yes,
every
I
finger?
think she does. I think she has an arm one now also. So, but it's just one of these little things that if they're getting ready to testify in court or they're having a stressful moment, it can help relieve some of that stress. And it's the small officer wellness things that when I was growing up in law enforcement, we didn't talk about those things. But it's a real thing now with our cops and the trauma that they go through. So I'm making a commitment to try and build that program up and get those things for our officers so that they have the resources to deal with some of the things that they see out here that most people can't deal with, even if it's just little rings there. If you didn't see, several of our officers have been nominated for the Butler County Prosecutor's Office Meritorious Award. P.O. Hale, P.O. Steppel, and P.O. Stamper are getting an award for placing a tourniquet on a gentleman that was involved in a very serious crash that probably had some ability to extend his life until our outstanding fire department and medics got there. But they gave them some time to be able to do that. And the prosecutor read the report that I submitted to them about it and said, absolutely, that is something that we want our people to know. So I've sent that to the board. It's open to anyone that wants to come. I just have to give them a head count. So if you let me know if you can make it that day, obviously I'll get the reservation done and then we'll do a press release for that down the road. I'm getting close, but it's been a busy month for me. We were also selected based upon the outstanding work that our officers did for community engagement as the April Agency of the Month for outstanding community policing efforts. And I submitted that to the Ohio Association of Chiefs of Police based upon all the community outreach that we do. And Little Ross Township beat out everybody in the state, was selected for April. So,
Very good.
I want them to know that we will set the example to engage with our community and get involved in our community, because every one of these officers here, we are so fortunate that they care about this community as much as I do. And they should, because I live here now. But anyway, grants. I had a good month for grants also. I don't know if it's contagious, but we were awarded. If you didn't see, the Governor Mike DeWine posted out, they issued about, I think it was $12 million in body worn camera grants. They fully funded us based upon the grant I wrote for 2 years. So that was $18,644, which is just the grant cycle. So at the end of that 2 year, I will write again to finish the other 3 years of our contract or whatever it may be if we need more body cameras. So I was excited that we got that. That'll be coming. And we were one of the new agencies to get it. We also received about $1,000 in the body worn vest program for the Attorney General's office for P.O. Vonderhaar's vest that we had submitted. We only match a 25%. So the basically $1,000 was our extra that was coming through. So even though we are using the Ohio opioid funds for the flock cameras, shortly after that, they did open a grant that I wrote to also cover the flock cameras under the Ohio Violence Reduction Grant based upon some other people that I had seen use that for. I don't know how that grant will go, but I've at least submitted for it to maybe get 2 additional cameras with the grant funding. So that funding won't come out for a couple months, but I've at least submitted it and gone through there. I also submitted a grant for the remaining $3,200 of some extra costs for the K-9 program through the Ross Community Foundation. I was speaking with their board members and Martha and getting some suggestions on what we could do for that. So that's been submitted. I believe they will vote in April to cover some additional, like the cage and, this is, a doghouse for outside the concrete. The company that's going to deliver that and actually finish the concrete is doing it at no cost for us because they saw everything that we were doing.
Will it be
So
heated?
what's that? Yes.
Will it be heated?
No, it will not be heated. The dog's not getting all that. So we did get our K-9 cruiser. I just saw Sarge pull up in it. Thanks to our friends at the Blue Ash Police Department, we got one of their slightly used K-9 cars and we just had it restriped out and it looks absolutely fantastic. So there's a couple more things we have to do, but Sarge detailed it out and everything, and we will be picking out that dog coming out here the first week of May. And then he will be with that dog for 7 weeks, 8 weeks, whatever it is, until he gets back and will hit the streets at the end of July. So the only other thing I have for the board, and I'm sorry that it was so long today, but again, it's been a very busy month, is I've been heavily recruiting, bringing in members of our organization, interviewing people. You know that I am committed to putting more police officers on the street here. I'm dealing with a lot of other agencies that are throwing out ridiculous money and ridiculous hiring bonuses. And I'm trying to find people that are the good fit for this township and this police department, because we will not be a stepping stone for other departments going forward. It's my job to show people the difference in our culture and our organization so that they want to stay here for their careers. So I've been interviewing people. We have 2 candidates. One is currently in the academy, set to graduate in June, and he is the highest scoring academic in the academy. And it's been some recruiting by some of our other people that are currently in the academy. And another female officer who was in law enforcement for a couple of years, actually worked with one of my old chiefs from many years ago at the Park District, got out to go to college, find another job, and then realized, like some of us do, that when this is in your blood, it's in your DNA. And she missed it and grew up here in Ross and interviewed. And I brought in my powerful, fearless females to sit in on that interview because I want them to like her and make sure she's the right fit. And they were excited about her having the opportunity. So they have passed their background, psychological, polygraph, drug screens, everything. They are ready to go. They won't be ready for full police duties until June, when the one would graduate the academy and the other one has to do a refresher course, which is like a 2-day course in June. And then she will be blessed with her full police powers because she has a 2-year hiatus. And this is what the Attorney General office does. So part-time officers, but it is going to put us at a complement where I believe I should be able to staff 2 officers working these streets at all times, at least during the busy times, which I'm going to do. It needs to be done. We are too busy. It is not safe. I will not let people leave this township unpoliced, and we need to get people out.
Agree.
That's all I have.
Safety
I
for,
was up till like 2 o'clock in the morning watching the storms, just going, okay, you need to go past this. You need to go past this. But that's it.
Yeah.
That's all I have for the board tonight. Thank you.
Chief.
Sorry I was long. Sorry I was long-winded.
I want to condemn,
right along.
I want to condone all the efforts you're putting into it and the the department being put up for the state. That's great. It puts us on the map a little bit.
Thank you,
I
sir.
appreciate the grants you're writing as well as Chief John's banner and Paul as well. When we don't have the money and you can go out and get grants, hey, it's all the better for everybody. I appreciate all that, you guys.
Chief, are you using I assume you are, the body worn cameras for training of the newer officers?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so what we will do is, even though they're reviewing body cameras all the time whenever something comes up, which is a very daunting task. But when we identify either policy or training issues or things that we can do better, we put that out for the whole entire department. It's not meant to criticize or embarrass. It's meant to make sure that we do the job the best we can and we learn from our mistakes so that we don't repeat mistakes. And then I'm sure they'll catch me doing dumb stuff all the time on camera, so.
And the flock, we've got the two that were approved. What is your plan where to put those flock cameras?
So we're going to put one coming in on Hamilton Cleves from Hamilton. And then we're going to put one over here coming in from Hamilton County. And then I was able to get the grant to cover the other ones, which would be the initial startup cost, which is the most expensive, I would obviously put them on 27 being major thoroughfares that come through, because as we can see by just last month, criminals take the normal path. They don't get creative. They're going to stick to the main thoroughfares, and you're going to get the most, I guess, bang for your buck when one of the criminals come through.
The plan's to keep it on the state routes.
Yes, sir.
Very good. Okay. Let's see, purpose, revise the police department's staffing structure and add one police recruit and two part-time police officer positions, and staffing level and pay rate summary must be adjusted accordingly. The following resolution is necessary to act and reflect those changes. Move for the resolution 2025-026, amending the staffing level and pay rates of fiscal officer during December 31st, 2025. I need a second.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Trustee McGurran.
Yes.
Trustee Blower.
Yes.
Trustee Young.
Yes, ma'am. Purpose, to approve the hiring of part-time police recruits Cameron, okay. Robbins and Alicia Cameron. Move the adoption resolution 2025-039 to hire Carmen Robbins into the position of part-time recruit at the rate of $20 per hour upon the successful completion of requirements for Ohio police officers training. Academy promote him to a part-time police officer at the rate of $28.39 per hour upon the successful completion of the first year employment, become eligible for the apply for the education, reimbursement, and tuition fees incurred during the attending of the police officer training academy in accordance to the current township policy, and to hire Alicia Kamer into the position of part-time police recruit to the rate of $20 per hour upon the successful completion of requirements of the Ohio Police Officers Training Academy, promoting her to the part-time officer at the rate of $28.39 per hour. These employments are subject to completion of all pre-employment testing in all accordance with the current staffing summary and rate resolution. I need a second.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Trustee McGurran.
Yes.
Trustee Blower.
Yes.
Trustee Young.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, turn the page here. Once my nimble little fingers get a hold of the damn piece of paper. Township business, old business, fire department levies.
Other than that, you want to talk to me?
I just redistributed just the potential levy summaries. Administrator Kyle and I had the opportunity to go out to Station 2. Chief Johns invited us to see a presentation put on by Assistant Chief Morris. He had updated their 10-year forecast. It is rather eye-opening. I just wanted to go back and say that, when the initial second levy was introduced many years ago, it was never designed to cover the capital expenses. And then in 2018, 29, that changed, that policy changed. And now the current fire levies as they exist do pay for those capital expenditures. Administrator Kyle and I suggested to Chief Johns that perhaps this would be a great work session in April presentation for for all of you and for any residents who would like to come and hear about the 10-year forecast for the fire department based on what is actually needed to keep the fire and EMS department alive and vibrant and helping our citizens. So that's a suggestion just from me, that we all take a collective look at the 10-year forecast. What do they actually need? What do we actually, to maintain the service level that our community is already used to receiving? So if that's an acceptable presentation for April, the work session in April, that would also give us collectively, or the royal us, an opportunity to make some decisions moving forward so that we can do our legislative due diligence and work with the prosecutor on getting language for ballot language, and then start educating the masses as to what's really needed. We don't really want them to ask for what they don't need, and
we want to educate people to understand how these levies work. The
Right.
thing that you don't know what you don't know.
it was
Really need to start
it was a
educating
fantastic
the public.
presentation.
You did a really good job with that.
It's very eye-opening. Annie talks about shows the whole, how the runs have increased and personnel costs have, healthcare costs, all those things. But I don't believe you guys are going to be in a position to make an educated decision without this information.
We just made a decision on which,
On which
the
levy
levy.
what's the amount that we're going to
Okay.
have to ask?
okay,
Mhm.
gotcha.
If we're going to run one new levy to replace the two existing, what is it we need to ask for? These two replacement levies are down, effective rates are down so low. We know it's going to be an ask for additional dollars from our citizens. So
On that a little bit, we won't discuss what we're asking for, but what we want to do is we got levies coming up next year to be voted on,
just one.
and they won't produce enough money for us whatsoever. And so what we're going to ask for this year is to have one come on that will replace those if it passes, then the other two will automatically drop off. And that way that one will replace. We're hoping that this will keep us going for 10 years.
We're hoping.
That's what our hope is. We won't have to come back and ask. We got fire trucks that'll have to be coming offline, front line equipment. They can drop back to second line equipment, but the state requires you to replace, even though they may have very little miles, even though they got very little pumping time on that pump, the state requires certain trucks to be replaced and moved back and frontline equipment brought in. We don't have the money to buy these things right now. A fire truck right now starting out, would it be around
800,000.
800,000? And by the time you get done?
By time.
And it's about 4-year wait time to get one too.
Yeah, right. The building time as well, yeah.
Yeah.
So the money has to be there for it when it comes time. We're trying to head off something could be a very bad, to put it that way. That's the idea of what we want to do. So we'll drop two off, one passes. We got to start educating the people what we want, what we need. Not what we want, what we need to keep the fire service going as we got it. Because as we're getting more people in this township, we're going to have more runs. We're going to have more full-time officers brought in to accommodate those runs.
And we have the same problem the police department has. Everybody else is hiring
Yeah,
way more money than what we're paying them.
right.
And we can't get anybody, we can't attract people.
And can't keep them.
Yeah.
Right. So these are all coming into play, and we're trying to keep ahead of the ball and keep it all in line with everything. All right, township-owned buildings.
On the second, I want to chat about that just a little bit. I spent Monday night in a Butler County tax chat. There was probably 100 people in there, 75 to 100 people. And the way the legislation is now, assuming it passes the Senate and the governor signs it, there won't be what are known as replacement levies anymore. I think everybody here understands the difference between replacement and renewal. I spoke against the legislation. It was sort of water under the bridge at that point. But on behalf of our township and the OTA, I don't think it's necessary. It was necessary legislation. When we replace a levy, when we renew a levy, it is being renewed for the same amount of money. And Julie, if I say something wrong, let me know. But let's just take for instance, we have, let's say, for instance, a 3 mil levy that generates $1 million based on today's property values. In 10 years, we are still collecting $1 million. The levy mills may go down because there are more people paying into the levy as the township grows. What we don't get is to capture the increased value of property. And we've had a lot of increased value in our property. The bill that was signed, at least went through the House, is going to eliminate replacement levies, period. So we are not going to be able to replace a levy and say that we want to keep the millage the same, but capture the money from the increased property values. If that doesn't make sense, please ask me. I'll answer slow, but I want to make sure that I'm telling you right. It was, I'm just working my way across the crowd. I'm trying to make eye contact with everybody.
You're making sense to me.
Okay. My reasoning for opposing it was, number one, I think people are intelligent enough to understand it. And it takes a tool out of our toolbox to say, we are not going to increase the millage of the levy, for instance, but it will increase the amount of taxes that the people are paying, that the township is collecting. But the Representative Hall and I think every Republican in the House probably voted for that. And I told them as much as I probably agree with you on a macro level of government, I disagree with this bill. OTA disagreed with the bill, but nonetheless, that's what happened. So we're probably going to have to put on what is called an additional, and we want to make it continual so that we are not putting the fire department in the place that the police department was in, which is every 5 years having to approve a levy to even fund it. Because if the levy for some reason doesn't pass, and you know, the people out here are usually by and large probably have 60 to 65% approval rating. If they decide not to approve it, then the fire department has no funding. And I look at that as a really bad thing, just like I did with the police department. So we want to make it continual, and it'll be a new levy, and the verbiage of it will come from the prosecutor's office. But what will happen is the two levies that are there will be left to expire.
We would actually have to rescind.
Okay, they'll be rescinded, and we're looking to have one levy that combines fire and EMS and EMT and all of that.
And hopefully you'll be able to word it in such a way that is a perpetual thing and will always accommodate the money necessary to keep the fire
We
department.
will keep that base.
It'll be a base.
It'll be a base.
Not always accommodate it, because as things go
It won't grow.
in 10 years, as they get more expensive, there may need to be, an additional, some additional money.
People,
Pardon me?
even when there's.
Yeah, because the way levies work, so let's say we run a new 5 mil levy just with the two. Over time, well, a good example is our two levies right now total 5.75 mils. But the effective rate, meaning what you actually pay, is down to 3.28. So that $5.75 in millage is down to $3.28, because as values grow, the rate comes down because it's only allowed to generate
So much money.
$1.1 million. That's the way that works. So if back in 2008, when the housing level, when the bubble burst and values started to increase, levies that had dropped down started to creep back up, but it would never go up over the original voted millage. So that's a cap. The actual voted millage is a cap. And then the first year it's out of the box, whatever it generates, that's the maximum. That's the maximum it will ever generate. So as values increase and new houses get built, the rate comes down so that it's only generating 1.1 million. And I cannot do that without doing this. I can't give you that scenario. I can't explain that.
The key is going to be verbiage and the education.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
the verbiage is done by the, not by
Absolutely.
us.
And it will not, the second fire levy that's up isn't up till next year. But it was the thought that if we run one new one replacing, if it passes, the other two go away. God forbid if it fails, we actually know what we have to do for next year to explain, and we won't have replacements available to us anymore.
Yeah.
So,
That's where the education part comes in. I thought it was going to take 2 years.
and
We didn't
shame
have
on
that.
any local government who's not using the verbiage correctly and saying, we want to replace this levy, but there's no new taxes. That's a lie. You can never say, when you replace a levy, you can't say no new taxes. If you renew it, you can honestly say, no new taxes. What you're currently paying is what you're going to continue to pay.
And I brought that point up I was addressing Representative Hall, that they seem like they're penalizing the townships they're being forthright and transparent and open and honest about it. They're penalizing those townships and taking a tool away from them instead of penalizing the townships that are actually not being forthcoming. And I think if they tell whoever those townships, whoever those municipalities, governments are, hey, straighten your act up, or we're going to do this or that or the other, that would be more effective than just telling us, well, we can't tell them what to do, so we're just going to scrap the whole thing. I don't think that was a good way to go about it, but, we agreed to disagree. Representative Hall's a very nice man, and we talked afterwards, and I'm sure we'll talk more. Anyway, that's how that'll be presented.
Taking the flows.
Taking to the woodshed.
All right. Township-owned buildings, long-term and planning and next steps. Okay. We were talking about the building down there. We're just going to scrap that building. We'll still use it, but we'll use it for another purpose, and that might be like a civil building for everybody. So anyway, we have a architect we've been working with, and they put in the proposal for us to go ahead and come up with some plans. So we know what we're looking at, so we know where we're going to, how we have to proceed or not proceed. And so they have come up with some plans for us, which we have to get into the contract, which will be part one of the scope, which is $17,975 to start this process going. Like I said, it doesn't mean it's going to happen right away. We still have to find land and have that building accommodated to the land. But it's a process, I feel, and I hope the whole board feels, that we have to start looking at, because we will have growth and we will have it down at this end. And it's not just for a fire department, it's police department, administration, and fire department. This building right here cannot be used for that. Are we going to tear it down? No. We'll put it for sale or whatever it takes. It's a process we have to start working through. So anyway, that's what I'm proposing tonight. And I'd like to see what the board thoughts are.
Keith?
And I've read this prior to when you sent it. Did it come in an email once already? Because this 17.9 is not new to me before tonight. And what is the architect saying for this cost? They're going to come up with a certain amount of designs for us to look at, a blueprint that is actually the build blueprint if we choose a design?
It probably,
Where
that
does
could
this
be a
take
build
us?
blueprint, but it'll be a proposal of what we're looking at, because they talk to each department, what we need. Now they're gonna come back and show us what we have to, we should have. Maybe not we need, may agree that we need more, we need less. It's to a study of showing actually what we should, be looking at, for we have room for growth, so on and so forth. So this is just a bidding process. Will it be a building blueprint? No. It'll be a layout plan of basically which things can be moved, added to and subtracted to and so forth. It's just a beginning process.
Okay, and how soon do you plan on moving forward with something with this?
I'm hoping that they've already got something established.
I'm sorry.
I'm believing they got already something established for them to start, putting in time on this thing. Of course, they have to have money to do so.
Correct.
So that's
But-
what this would be, the beginning process of,
And a timeline on the beginning process. Are you looking for midsummer, late this fall to move forward with this next year? Because this is
that
your,
we'll have to talk.
what is this?
Talk to them
This is your idea of, was it a 5-year out or a 10-year out?
Well, 10 years is way down.
Too far out?
This is like, you get something started within 2 years.
Okay.
It may take
Okay.
5, but this is the beginning process, that's all.
Because I will say, I'm curious of what the outcome on their part is on speaking with the police chief and the fire chief of the actual plan. Let's face it, we meet twice a month. The facility is really
Not for us.
10% for administration.
Right.
Not taking anything away from our fiscal officer and our administrator. They hold their own officers. But the biggest part of this facility will be police and fire.
Correct.
And I guess that's where I stand right now. I want to see the concept of what they've come up with from just that talk. And then at that point, once they present that, then it goes back to the department heads to say, yes, that's exactly what I was talking about. And I feel that's what takes my department into the future.
Right.
So
You guys don't pay attention to a damn thing, do you?
please don't interrupt the meeting like that. If you're unhappy, then yes, walk out, but be quiet about it. He won't be coming back.
We'll deal with that.
Okay? He'll be trespassed from the building if he can't behave himself in a public meeting. You can be upset about it, but you don't do that to any sitting board member or anything. I've had my fill. Okay, that is my questions.
What's the plan to pay for it, though? I mean, do you
That is
understand?
all going to be a couple within years. The fire station down, that was 20-year payoff. It's not going to be paid for that year with a levy. It's going to take years, just like our homes.
Do you have the 17,000 to pay for this?
That'll come from farther down the table. And again, let us not break away from our meeting. Public participation is closed. Save that for our work session. That's when we can really do the nuts and bolts, and we're out of the bylaw that we're open to talk a lot more. I'm just questioning thoughts from my colleagues here. That's all. And we can talk much more about it at our next meeting. Okay, that's where I'm at. I was just curious about timelines.
That's totally understandable.
But I understand there has to be something on paper to start working with.
Exactly.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm quite sure they got some plans for us. This is where we did this is where we did that. I haven't talked to them for over a month. So,
Yeah.
this letter came in between that time, just recently, and so they gave us a cost of what to go forward, what they need to do to go forward.
Okay.
All right, then, of course, then the actual plans and stuff like that will come out and they'll do the bidding and everything else for us. My assumption would be, because they did it up there at the other firehouse.
Okay.
I've been told that this property and this building is not big enough. And I 1000% disagree with that. Norwood has a firehouse that's probably on property, probably about a quarter the size of this. Hamilton up on Main Street has a very small one. Westchester has the same thing. I can't imagine that this property that we're sitting on now, not maybe necessarily the building, but the property is not big enough to put a firehouse, a combined firehouse and police house, or police department if it's done right. These guys seem to think that that's not the case. I'd like to talk to them more before I'm going to say, okay, $18,000 sounds good to me. And until I'm on the same page with somebody that thinks we can put a building here without having to go out and find land, I'm not good with this.
Mhm.
And I'm good with looking forward, toward the future and things like that. But in just looking at the acreage or the square footage or whatever, I just don't see this property not being big enough. Chris, we've talked about that before.
I honestly don't know.
Okay.
The fire department's gonna take up a lot of it.
Sure.
That
Mhm.
apparatus space.
How much room do you use at 102? And compared to this building, and I'm not disparaging our police department, but just the sheer size of their equipment is.
Are you talking like apparatus bay?
I don't know how much land you have there because there's grass,
Right.
grassy knoll out back, but,
1.5 acres or so.
okay. And this is, how big is this
This under,
area? 2 acres, 3 acres?
1.73, I think it is acres.
Okay.
That's what it is.
I'd
Well,
just
the
like to
only-
talk to them more about
yeah,
finding out if
the
they
only
think they can
trouble
build
is-
something here.
Is like up there, they got a nice big apron they can pull in and back the trucks into.
Yep.
We can't have an apron like that here because by
What
that
if the
time,
building were to the back?
and if we went out the back,
I mean, if your building were to the back and you utilize the front more, that's why I don't understand. And I also think, I agree with trustee McGurran that you can go up. I know they talked about that, but offices for administration, even the meeting space could be up. Now you're into elevators
Mhm.
because you have to accommodate. But I'm looking at Cincinnati Dayton Road, that facility in Westchester.
Mhm.
It cannot be on a piece of property this big.
Yeah.
And it's a nice facility.
I'm not saying it can't be. I'm just saying,
I'm thinking more forward, whereas it could be more
back. I understand. So if we have to drop back and put an apron, let's say, what's the apron up there, about 60 feet?
Probably longer than that.
Longer than
Probably
that?
100 feet.
Well, okay, then you need that kind of a space to pull a truck into and back up. So 100 feet, we're almost at the end already. That's the trouble. Not that we need that big of an apron. Let's just go 35 feet, okay? A truck's 26 feet, feet long.
Almost 40 feet.
I
Okay.
watched Norwood close, not close, but just pause traffic for a short amount of time to whatever, take their truck, pull it in this way, back it in this way. Have you seen the Norwood Fire Department? Okay. So they do that. They don't have the ability to drive in the back and turn around. They just stop traffic and back in. I don't know that it's necessary to have a 60 or 100-foot apron here if we can stop
I think,
traffic and back it
I
in.
think the reason up there is the state made them do that. They
Okay,
didn't want them backing up on 27.
okay,
So you might run into that out here too.
okay. Then that would be a question to ask before we get to this point where we're spending $20,000 to find out. Can we even build it on this property? I think that's a fundamental question that we can ask an architecture firm
Sure, I
to say,
can,
can we even do it here? Before we get to spending $20,000 to say, well, nope, you can't build it there. And now we've got to buy land somewhere else, try to sell this building. And I think that leads to more money. So, I mean,
I see your point.
given where we are right now, I wouldn't be in favor of that.
Just, the only thing I'm looking at is like if we did put a fire truck here and not, like I said, police departments don't need as much land as for their vehicles, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Pulling out of 128 right here can be cumbersome at times when traffic's backed up. And that's not all the day. It's a percentage of the day. So we also talked about going out the backside, but then if they come out the backside, they can't make the bend up here. They come back down this way. So, I'm not saying they can't build it here. I'm just saying it's probably not as reasonable, And if we have another piece of property pop up, that's what I'm trying to work on still right now. And we'll see how that goes. If you want to maybe give them a call and talk to them personally, that'd be fine. And see what they think about our property, because I gave them a layout of the property. say, you know what, we have here.
They'd be able to look it up on the parcel on
Yeah,
the auditor site.
and laminating what their plans are, their thoughts are, and they can move it around, see if they can put a building on here. There's nothing saying they can't.
Yep.
I just thought, rather than having the expense of tearing it down, we could possibly sell it. And now we're gonna make it a lot of money because we paid, what, $678,000 for it? And the value of it now is only $780,000. That's what, its value is. Doesn't mean somebody's gonna pay it. So in the 15 years that we've owned this building, they overpaid. That's plain and simple, but that's past.
I think we can have some internal conversation before we jump to spend
Okay, I'm fine with
$18,000.
that.
I'm not against the plan of, perhaps selling that or using that for an admin building or using this for fire and police only. But I just think right now, and this is just, my opinion, there's
That's right.
two other ones here. I just think we need to maybe move a little slower because we know what we want to do first and make sure that these are the right people to do it with.
Yeah,
Before we just commit $18,000. So there,
okay.
that's me.
So any, don't want to take it up for a vote, that's fine. If we want to talk to them more, we can talk to them more. I have no problem with that.
I think it would be prudent to talk to them more before we.
I think, and I'd like to address this. I think we heard a one-sided complaint from one resident this evening about keeping that station down there. I've got the fire chief right here, and I'm sure he'll agree. That building is outdated. It was meant for a volunteer fire department with a bunch of us that were interested in fighting fires and rescuing people on our available time. And the fire and the township has changed that it requires full-time firemen. And that facility is not set up for the proper sleeping quarters. It is not set up for the proper hygiene of female or male. Both restrooms are extremely small, and it's not 2025. I hate to spend money just like anybody else hates to spend money. This building here, it's a car dealership. It is what it is.
Mhm.
If you walk in here to speak with the fiscal officer or the township administrator, you by no way should have access to the chief of police office or his secretary just by walking through. Him and her both are behind secured walls and bulletproof glass. That's a police department. So yes, it's not safe for employees, undersized and out-aged down below. Again, it's going to be a massive amount of money, lots of legwork by the board members, department heads. And again, I look, my homeowner's insurance, because everything else, it's gone up next week also, but it's the nature of the business.
Mhm.
And I think strong-minded people will come up with a fantastic decision on all this. There's quite a few people sitting up here that can debate it down and public participation. And we'll work on that in 2 weeks.
So we'll hold off until we have more debate. That's fine.
We're not rushing. You said that. We're only, it's only April. We're not even four full months into this.
Okay.
So I think plenty of time.
Okay.
Plenty of
Yeah,
time.
I was just throwing it out there, see, like I said, it's a
No
long
harm in
plan.
that.
It doesn't mean everything goes breaking ground next week, but that's totally understandable. All right, Venice Overlay District.
I talked with Greg Young. Lori, do you have anything about the overlay district you want to talk about? Okay. I talked with Greg Young on March 31st in the morning. And then I talked to David Fair on April 1st in the morning. Some of the things that were said about our zoning, and this is more of a social media type thing, where why did we let Dollar General build a thing there? Concrete, they call it the Twin Sisters or whatever.
I have no idea.
And
It had a name.
they asked us, and we said, well, we can't do that. We don't have our own zoning. Once the zoning is changed, they can put whatever business there they want. Well, why didn't the trustees do this, or why didn't they do that? We can't do anything. The overlay district allows us some influence on that. There was an overlay district that was included with the original zoning plans. And I talked with Mr. Young at length about that. And I talked to Mr. Fair at Butler County at length about that. My thought, because there may be some development down here, originally this overlay district was going to be from School Road down to Cincinnati Brookville, down to 126. And what it did is it allows us to say how the building can look, how the roofs can look, how the landscaping can look, how the signs can look, and all that kind of thing, to sort of preserve the way that we like Ross Township maybe to look moving forward. I think we need to probably run that down farther, maybe to Kraus Lane, so that anything that happens on the Burns development, if it does in 5 years or 10 years or 20 years, that it's included on that, so that we keep the, if you want to say the charm of downtown Ross to look like downtown Ross, that this would do that. And again, it gives us a little bit of influence and control over how it looks, not what goes there. And to that point, I talked to Mr. Fair, and he said there was a CVS put in Montgomery, and it was made to look very nice, and you can't even tell that it's a CVS. The way it's built, the way it's landscaped, the way it's bricked, and all that kind of stuff. So if people if they want to be able to voice their opinion, to the board, whoever's on that board, and for us to have a little bit of influence and maybe a little bit of control, this is how to do it. The process that goes through, according to Mr. Fair, there would be text, verbiage that has to be put in place, maps and definitions of I guess how everything's defined. There would have to be a zone change, which would zone that into an overlay district. We go before the County Planning Commission, we go before the Rural Zoning Commission, and then the commissioners of Butler County to sort of lay this out. Commissioners, the way I understand it, can approve it. It doesn't have to go to a vote of Ross Township. They can just approve all of this.
Not the whole township. I thought it was just the people covered in that area.
It's actually, I was told it was actually not.
Okay.
That these are the basic 5 steps that it has to go through. But if that's something that the board is interested in pursuing, then we can do that. If it's not, then again, we don't have any control over it. It just, if one of those houses down there sells and the new buyer does what they did at Dollar General and gets a zoning change to commercial or, B2 business, they can put anything in there they want that's within that zoning, and we can't do a dang thing about it. So that's my sales pitch on me thinking that's a good.
So does the overlay change that? I mean, it's still a zoning.
It controls it. No, it doesn't change it. It doesn't change the fact that somebody can.
They couldn't put
They still can come in here, but they have an architectural.
We can define how it's going to look. So the Dollar General wouldn't
No more
be,
big metal buildings.
I think the Dollar General, as far as the business goes, I think it's fine. Could it look better? Yeah, it could. But that gives us the opportunity to make it look better so that maybe when somebody comes in here, maybe they don't want to buy up all those houses that are over there. Because we have a layover plan in there that says, nope, you can't build this, you can't build that. Yes.
This was brought forth years ago. Does anybody know? Because I know I don't. Why did this never move forward? That it was adopted?
Mr. Fair talked about that, and I don't know if it was a board change.
I know.
But it was back in, I want to say the early 2000s, maybe.
Yeah, yes.
And then this recent zoning issue, this was sort of connected, I think, to the zoning issue, and that if the zoning passed, there would be this, in it, and we would have our own control. But now that the zoning hasn't passed and it was shut down handily, I think it was 62 to 38%. It lost by a lot.
Because one thing I think I'm sure of is that the study itself for the overlay, and I remember seeing some a moving of sunshine to align with Venice or vice versa. It was up around 38 grand back then.
Mhm.
And it just never, it was done, but never laid dormant. Was Wendy Moeller even a part of that back then? She was.
Right.
Maybe she hasn't, we ever talked to her or she comes to talk to us about this. She'll know why it never moved forward. Was it like a legality issue or no support? And I don't know.
According to this document, I've got this in my file here somewhere. The district was drafted in 2016, but never went through the final review process and the adoption process. So I guess it just.
2016?
Mhm.
Okay,
So
that answered my question.
it's just a thought because, people do, they'll hop on Ross Talk or they'll talk whatever. Why don't we do this or why don't we do that? Again, we can't, but with this, we can. So.
Could we get
My 2
somehow
cents
get
on
the public opinion? Maybe through our newsletter?
So what is our next step if we feel we should move forward with this?
Our next step would be to contact David Fair's office and put text and verbiage and maps and definitions together. Mr. Young has the overlay plan and it's 66. It was a lot of pages. It was a lot. I didn't even print the whole thing. It was huge.
So how does everybody else feel? I feel you gentlemen feel we should move forward?
So how would we describe how we want the buildings to look? As far as you said, the CVS doesn't look like a CVS. I can see places like Marymount, they want to keep that authentic look, the brick and everything else, and old time look. Maybe up in Oxford, everything's cobblestone and they want to keep it looking like a university, but what do we have as far as the look here?
I think if there's enough interest,
Farmhouse, farming area.
Right.
Yeah.
So everybody's gonna have their buildings look like a farmhouse, saying, what way,
And as on the right-hand side, as you go down, they're all white.
yeah.
From Larry Tennis on down.
if there's enough interest to pursue it, I'd say invite Mr. Young back and let him do a more thorough presentation.
Sounds like somebody we ought to invite.
Okay, let's do it that way.
All right. So, I don't know if that's a work session. It can,
He's likely going to be here at the April work session unless you think that's too much stuff to do in one night.
well, and I don't know, do we do it where public, we make a public, announcement of it that, here's something we're looking at, we're talking about, come out and give us your comments while Mr. Young's making the presentation and allow kind of open
May.
open discussion? I would say so.
I would too.
Well, in the spirit of
I guess it's,
being very open and very transparent, I think we should do that.
we defer to his schedule.
Or it could be included in the spring newsletter.
Okay.
I'm just wondering if the board would want to make sure that you better understand before you have the public here and try to answer their questions. Make sure that the board has a good understanding of what it can do, what it can't do.
So then on maybe April 17th, do we have time to work that in our work session on the 17th or not? Okay. So,
Or should we maybe put it off to a May work session to get Wendy here?
yeah,
Just throwing that out there.
and probably Jennifer Patterson and John Fisher.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I agree.
Okay.
Right, that's the overlay.
That way-
It's going to have to be within the confines of the Butler County rural zoning. What we're going to do, we're going to, fit within the rural zoning resolutions definition of a mixed use overlay district. So
Got that in. I don't know if this
I'm
was
wondering
official or not.
if the board needs to start with having David Fair here to better understand how to utilize
Mhm.
this. I don't even know, did David Fair mention, has this been utilized yet? Have they put this into practice anywhere in the county yet?
I don't know if I asked him that question. I don't think I did.
because this was when the rural zoning resolution was updated. This went into effect December 21st, 2022. This was a new section. So I'm just wondering if we might be the first that utilize it.
I don't think we are. I think we may have touched on that a little bit because I think there's one in Westchester on Cincinnati Dayton, near the post office.
Well, I think Westchester has their own zoning.
Okay.
This is just those
Okay.
townships that utilize the
Okay.
rural zoning resolution.
I think they used an overlay district. They may not have used the county.
But we have to get ours to conform
Okay.
to what the county wants and what the county says it can do.
I think it's something we can move slowly and deliberately on and make sure that everybody in the public, that we all know what we're talking about doing. It's a nice quaint little idea, but let's make sure everybody's on board with it.
Right.
So, Mr. Young, I think, Greg Young, maybe be our first step,
Okay.
just to understand, so the board understands.
So you believe he's attending
Oh,
the,
I think I
The
misspoke.
17th.
So I think it's, if he's available, pending his availability.
Okay.
I think.
I'll ask Greg Young if he can attend the work session on the 17th.
Does that fill up our work session? Keeps us busy? Okay.
Now, will you want to continue discussion on the long-term planning for the township buildings as well in that work session?
Let me contact them and see what they can provide, and I'll get back with you on that one. Like I said, we're in no big hurry, just see what they can present to us and like that. So you want to try to put both of us in the same one? That might
Oh,
throw at 10 o'clock.
don't the school board meetings conflict with?
And then the third Thursday of the month.
Oh.
The work session would be,
But he'd never be able to come to a work session now.
no.
Well, we could potentially move the work session, but pending his availability. I mean, if he could do the Wednesday night before, if that's an option, like the 16th,
Of,
April?
okay.
April, okay.
And that's just a possibility. If he's willing to do that, we would have to do an announcement that we're changing the meeting. So maybe
Well, but we've already
I
confirmed
was gonna say,
that
gotta make
everyone
sure
can
everybody
come and
else
discuss
can-
the levy.
That was
okay.
Jared.
Okay, so
Jared,
maybe we look at the May meeting then, maybe look to moving it. If that's true, have different people coming to look at the long range forecasting for the fire, and we already have people lined up to
That
go.
presentation might take a while.
So maybe we look at the May meeting, and that gives us more time to maybe speak with Mr. Fair in
Yep.
advance.
And I think to Mr. Young's point, splitting these two up might be better for our
Yes.
collective brains to
Yep.
not confuse one subject with the other.
So I will ask Greg Young if he can attend the Wednesday,
Prior.
it would be
The
prior
14th of May.
May 14th. Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Anything else from the board on the old business? New business? Then from the administration, anything from the board on new business?
I have nothing.
That kind of like falls in that category anyway. Announcements, nothing from the board, anything from administration, anything from the board, no announcements? No. Correspondence, Ohio Division of Liquor Control sent a notice to all Class C and Class D retail permits to sell alcoholic beverages in Ross Township will expire June 1st, 2025. The Ross Township Board of Trustees has the legislative authority to write and to object to annual renewal of retail permit to request a hearing. After consideration input from the police department, does the board request any hearing particular to current retail holders? Anybody?
Any objections from the police department? You're all good, sir?
All right, we're
I
okay then.
I have nothing then.
All right. Butler Rural Electric Cooperative sent a ballot to the vote for the 2025 Board of Trustees election. We got that here. The Ross Township trustees may submit their candidate selections. to the Township Administrator April 15th, 2025. She will then compile the results and submit to the Township's ballot by April the 20th, 2025. Anything from the board?
Nothing.
Speaks.
Nope.
April 17th, 2025 work session. The Fire Department 10-year forecasting report. And A is another, anything from the board on that topic? Nothing?
Nope.
Closing action. There be no further business being brought to the board. Move the administration adoption, I'm sorry, to the number 2025-040, the adjourn the meeting and have a second for that.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Trustee McGurran,
Yes?
trustee Blower,
Yes.
trustee Young.
Yes, ma'am. Next meeting will be April 17th, 2025, 6 PM here at the Rock Center. And hopefully everybody can come along. And May 1st will be our next meeting for the same here at 6 o'clock.